Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. I think this show has talked about intermittent fasting and fasting in general for health purposes longer than any other show out there. We did our first interview with Dr. Michael McCarty, who published a rodent study on every other day fasting and showed that things like sirtuins and metabolic changes occurred. And that was in 2007. Either the end of 2007, beginning of 2008, because I was still in Arizona at that time. And ever since then, we've talked about fasting. And fasting has taken a lot of different roles. We've talked about when you fast too often for too long and how you can break glucagon. And there's a lot of people out there who take fasting a little too far. But there are definitely benefits in fasting. And we're going to find out today if exercise before you start a fast actually impacts it in a beneficial way in just a couple moments with Dr. Bruce Bailey and Landon Deru from Brigham Young University. Before we do that, of course, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that is Legendary Foods, the makers of the Tasty Pastry. The Tasty Pastry, if you're not aware, started out as an alternative to a Pop-Tart, and it's become so much more. It tastes better than a Pop-Tart. In fact, it tastes like you're eating real cake, real pastry. And it has less than 1 gram of sugar and 20 grams of high-quality protein, generally 5 or less net carbs. The flavors are amazing. You'll eat them because they taste great, not because they're good for you, but at the same time, they are good for you. And because Ron Penna, founder of Legendary Foods, is so generous, he allows us to give away product on this show to anybody who wants it. If you listen during the commercial breaks, you'll hear a secret word. You simply write that secret word down or type it down into an email along with your mailing address, and Legendary Foods will send you a box of goodies, including tasty pastries. And these are just some of the people who have taken advantage of that. This gentleman right here couldn't believe all the things that he got from Legendary Foods. A box of stuff, as you can see right there in the picture. Tasty pastries, seasoned almonds. Same thing here. Thanks, my man. And he has a box from Legendary Foods. And the one that I love to show the best is this one of Lucy and Izzy. These are two sisters who love tasty pastries in the morning and think that they're eating junk like their friends do at home. And their dad said it's made mornings so much easier in their home. So don't wait. It's just free stuff. Go listen during the commercial break for the secret word. Type it down into an email. Send it to me on air at superhumanradio.net. Don't forget to include your mailing address. I will not email you back and say, hey, what's your address? These are simple instructions. And we'll get a box of goodies out to you that you will fall in love with all these products. And now, without further delay, Let's bring my two guests on, open up their microphone, put up a little artwork that Natalie created. Welcome to the show. Dr. Bruce Bailey, you have your microphone muted, I think, Dr. Bailey, so you need to unmute that. And then Landon Deru. How you doing, Landon?
Doing well. Thanks for having us today, Carl.
Thank you.
Great.
Good to be here.
So before we talk about your most recent study, let's talk about why. Why was this study the next step? Landon, are you the lead author on this study by any chance?
Yeah, so Dr. Bailey and I worked together closely. So this was actually my master's thesis that we put together, he and I.
I thought so. That's why I figured we'd lead with that. Why this study? What preceded this? What did colleagues do? Maybe what other studies have you been involved with that this was the next one?
Yeah. So we're a lifestyle medicine lab, right? All we care about is making people better, making people healthy, much like you. And we appreciate the work you do on this podcast, trying to improve lives and do it. We feel like the body has so many capabilities to naturally heal itself and be better if it's given the right tools. So we'd had an interest in fasting for a while. We actually started out because we'd heard of fasting and we knew about ketones and their benefits, and we thought, I wonder if just skipping breakfast is enough. What's out there? Can we just skip breakfast and call that fasting and call that good? Or is that detrimental? So we started looking into some of the data and found, well, gosh, there's not a whole lot out there. And so especially in regards to how much time it takes to fast to actually get in ketosis or building your ketones up to therapeutic levels. And so we thought, well, gosh, if no one's done it, it's a great hole to fill.
So when we talk about ketone levels, we're talking about blood ketone levels measured in millimoles, correct?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, there's different ways that you can measure ketones, and different ketones show up in different places. You can measure it in urine, you can measure it in the breath, but the most convenient way to measure it for research is to take it in the blood, because we can get it whenever we want.
So there's a big difference between ketogenesis and ketolysis, right? Ketolysis means utilizing ketones as an energy substrate, and correct. Ketogenesis means the body is making ketones. And this blurry line has occurred because of the ketone supplement industry, which likes to say, be in ketosis in 5 minutes. You're not. You're in ketolysis because your body's using ketones that you artificially ingested, and it's not producing them. But so is blood the acid? Is that the ideal way to test for ketones? Dr. Bailey, I'll turn this to you. Does that show how much you're using or just how much is present?
That's a good question. It's not a perfect measurement. It's probably the easiest measurement that we can get. And so obviously you can consume ketones and get elevated ketones in your blood. That has some maybe therapeutic benefit. However, there are also some benefits from just the energy restricted benefits are not there also. So it's a good question.
So, okay, let me rephrase it then. Okay. Can we look at blood levels and expelled breath or urine and say, oh, so you started out with a full tank of gas and you expelled half of it, so half of it was used for energy. Is there a way to take two different readings and extrapolate whether the body is using ketones as opposed to just making ketones?
I think it comes down, at least in my mind, the process that you use to get those ketones, right? If you've ingested what we call exogenous ketones, you're taking those in as salts, and yeah, like you said, they hit the bloodstream, and you have ketones in your body, versus producing them naturally either through a ketogenic diet or through fasting or carbohydrate restriction. So I think the mechanism that you use to build those up will determine whether you're actually. Does that make sense? I don't know.
It does. But let me go a little deeper. What do you expel in breath that shows that ketones are being used as an energy substrate? Is it an acetate?
Acetone, yeah.
Acetone. So
good.
if you're expelling it in your breath, is it safe to say that you're using it as a form of energy?
I would say that's a safe assumption. Dr.
Okay.
Bailey, you feel like
So
that's, I mean,
Yeah.
so we think traditionally, I guess classically in a clinical setting, that's been before we had a lot of blood tests, when we had type 1 diabetics, that's how they diagnosed. They'd smell that fruitiness on their breath, and that's that acetone, right?
Right.
And so that's because even though these type 1 diabetics had longer to handle bloodstream, they couldn't produce the insulin to bring it in and use it. So their bodies were essentially, their cells were starving, so they'd produce those ketones as their alternate fuel source.
So should researchers be interested not only in ketone production, but ketone usage as a substrate when we do these types of studies? Should we be looking at, I mean, because ketone production in and of itself isn't really where the magic is. It's when the body is actually using it. Like, for instance, with people with Alzheimer's disease, they become insulin resistant in the brain. Glucose doesn't get into the brain. We know that exogenous ketones can give them a sense of lucidity and kind of bring them back to normal. So we know the ketones are being used if their ability, their cognition changes. That's evidence that it's being used. So should we be more interested in not only the production of ketones from a scientific standpoint, but also the utilization, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I've got an opinion, but Dr. Bailey, if I'll let you go first.
Yeah, well, I think there's both, right? And the production, actually, the presence of beta hydroxybutyrate specifically in the blood acts as a chemical signaler for a number of metabolic pathways, including some alternating expression of genes. It has impacts on cancer. It has impacts on some of the metabolic functions. Has metabolic impacts on fat metabolism. So in and of itself, it actually is a chemical signaler and does alter functioning in the body. But utilization is also very interesting because, and you can see that with the brain, like you said. To be fair, I just don't know enough about how to measure utilization and what that would be like to make a good comment on how to make that even
functional. No, you're right. You're right. In fact, my question is quite short-sighted because, as you point out, ketones are signaling mechanisms as well. And while they may not get utilized per se or be spun off into some downstream metabolite that is evidence of their utilization, they're doing something in their native state. So You're right. My question was quite short-sighted, really, in reality. Okay, so let's talk about the study. How was this study designed, and what were the endpoints you were looking for?
Sure. So we designed the study at essentially, so our original question was, does skipping breakfast build you up to get your ketones high enough to do any good? And when we didn't know that, because no one's really, lots of research has talked about building up your ketones and doing it through fasting, but we couldn't find anybody that had actually honed in on a time frame. How long does it take? What does it actually take? How long does it take to fast to get those up there? And so that was kind of our initial question. And then we are an exercise science backgrounded people, so we wanted to also see how exercise influenced that time frame. So we pulled together 20 people and we put them through the ringer. We had them do 2 36-hour fasts, where for 36 hours they only got water. And if that's not enough torture, we brought them in every 12 hours. So at baseline, 12, 24, and 36 hours, we drew their blood. And then every 2 hours in between that, while they were awake, we'd had them prick their finger and get a finger prick for their ketones. So it was a little bit of intense study, not for the faint of heart.
So now you had one group that preceded the initiation of their fast with cardio training, and one that did not. What was the cardio training? Treadmill work for 45 minutes? What did they do?
Yeah, so we fed everybody a standardized meal. We wanted everybody to kind of start on the same level, right? So we gave them all a meal that consisted of 60% carb, 25% fat, 15% protein. And that was a certain percentage of their basal metabolic rate. So we gave them 25% of their basal metabolic rate in a meal. And then we said, okay, if that was 650 calories, you're on the treadmill and you're burning all 650 calories off. So we had them wear
So
metabolic mask.
So let me make sure I understand something. So the group that preceded their fast with cardio had a meal before doing cardio.
Correct.
Wow,
Both did.
that blew me away. Both of them did. Okay,
Both of them did.
that blows me away because when you talk about fasted cardio, like I do fasted cardio every morning, I get out of bed and I do my cardio, sit in the sauna,
been fasted
and then
for
have
10
my
hours.
breakfast.
Right.
Oh no, I stop eating at 6 p.m. every day, so
Okay.
Good.
I'm already fasted for 12 hours by then.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. So in this case, actually everybody did both arms of the study. So one time they'd come in and exercise first, the other time they didn't. So they did both.
I love it. Crossover. So you could take uniqueness of individuality and put it someplace. That's beautiful.
Yeah, you're a scientist. And we love that you use science. We love that you back up all this stuff with science. We need more people like you.
I'm gonna excuse my French, but I'm from Brooklyn, so I am in the art of bullshitting. So
there you go.
I've mastered it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Perfect. No, that's great. So yeah, so essentially we could compare side by side each individual how they reacted, right? And whether they started with or without exercise. Gave them the same meal both times, but one time they hopped on the treadmill. And we exercised them pretty intensely. We put them at 70% of what's called their heart rate reserve, which is roughly 70% of their max heart rate. And so we wanted a fairly intense bout of exercise. And then we measure breath by breath. And we essentially worked off every bit of the calories that we fed them so that they start. Yep, that meal that we just fed them. So we wanted them to kind of start at ground zero.
That's fascinating. Okay, so that you already blown me away because I thought they just got on the treadmill and with already fasted, did their work and then continued to fast, which in and of itself probably would get some dramatic results. Okay, so continue on. So then how did you tested them every 2 hours, you said, during waking hours to look at so what did you see in the group that exercised after their first meal and preceding their fast versus the group that did not exercise? What jumped right out?
Yeah, so it looked like, from what we can tell, and Dr. Bailey, if you want to chime in, please do. But up till about 12 or 13 hours of fasting, the exercised group kind of stayed higher. Their ketones stayed higher, but they both stayed fairly level as they went along. At about 13 or 14 hours, we started to see those separate, where the people who didn't exercise continued to build their ketones, but it wasn't as fast as a rate as those who had exercised. So also when we look at ketones in the blood, or when we looked at beta hydroxybutyrate, I guess the common consensus for being in ketosis is a level of 0.5, right? So people always shoot for 0.5 to kind of hit that minimum threshold.
Right.
Yeah. And so we wanted to look at that time frame and see, did people get to 0.5 faster if they exercised, or did that totally throw a loop in things and take them longer? And what we found is that if you don't exercise, if you're just fasting, you got to that 0.5 at about 21 hours, give or take. So.
Okay. So did you look at insulin and glucagon by any chance in this group?
Yes. Yep, we did.
So tell me, what did you see in the group that exercised before versus the non-exercise group in insulin and glucagon?
Yeah, do you want to take that one, Dr. Bailey, or would you like me to?
I'm okay if this is your study, Len. I'm okay if you talking about it. I'll chime in as I think we need to add in. I think that's fine.
Yeah,
perfect.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess one thought then. So if they fasted only, their ketones would get to 0.5 around 20 hours. When we added the exercise component at the beginning, they actually hit that same level in 17 and a half hours. So they trimmed off 3.5 hours of fasting to get to that same therapeutic level, which was really cool. And then even overall, their ketones over that course of that full 36 hours, those who exercised first got 43% more ketones, more beta hydroxybutyrate. So if it's that we are looking for, we know the therapeutic and clinical benefits of having elevated ketones. And if we can get 43% more of them, I think that's a really cool health takeaway from that.
So as ketone levels rose, I would imagine insulin production became suppressed. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah. And in fact, we actually saw what, if you look at our chart, if you look up the paper, we had our insulin levels up here right after they ate at time 0. Within 12 hours, we see this huge drop. At our next blood draw, it had just completely dropped. And then after that, it stayed pretty level. So we didn't have anything in between time 0 and 12 to let us know exactly how that curve looked. But within 12 hours, our insulin was about as low as it's going to get.
Okay.
So for even for people who think, oh, fasting, that sounds awful, I can't do it, I get grumpy when I fast. 12 hours, if you're looking for insulin sensitivity improvements, your insulin's down to almost as low as it's going to go in 12 hours of fasting.
And I'll tell you, so I have done intermittent fasting for over a decade, and I started to develop some serious, some disturbing issues that looked like insulin resistance to me. Okay, neuropathy, distended gut. Now, keep in mind that any given morning, I can check my blood sugar after a 12-hour fast, and I'm between 0.5 and 0.8 millimoles.
Wow.
And my blood sugar is somewhere around 67 to 72.
Ooh,
but I had Joel Green on the show recently. We talked about, I think I broke glucagon. I think I fasted so frequently for so long that it started to backfire. And I actually became somewhat insulin resistant, even though insulin was relatively low. And I can't explain this. I'm just telling you that this is what's happened. I've actually gone back to eating breakfast in the morning now around 6 a.m. So I'm still getting that 12-hour fast. And when I wake up in the morning, my ketone levels are 0.5, 0.6, 0.7 all the time. So I'm starting to, when we learned about paleo, we just take everything way too far. When we learn about keto, we take everything way too far. And we've done the same thing with fasting, in my humble opinion. We have people out there that put up these memes. This is what happens to your body every hour of a fast. This happens first. And so people think, oh, I got to fast 24 hours every single day in order to really take advantage. No, if you do that constantly from an evolutionary perspective, your body goes, wow, this guy can't really hunt very well. So we need to start flipping some genetic switches to protect him from dying.
No, and exactly. I actually like that term, that switch. So Dr. Mattson has done a lot of work, and he calls this metabolic switch, and talks about the importance of switching metabolic fuels. And so we talk about ketones being so beneficial, but in my opinion, part of it's the contrast, because we're always tapping into our carbohydrate fuel source. We're always using glucose. It's beneficial to sometimes switch to ketones and have that balance. And I think, that's true in anything in life, right? If you work one system too hard, you're going to wear it out. And so having that balance.
We learned that protein synthetic response depends on the amount of all-day autophagy. So like in other words, so wait a minute. So because we have basal autophagy and then we have spikes in autophagy depending on diet, sleep, exercise, all this other stuff. Even light affects autophagy rates. But if your body's always in that state of autophagy, you can't build muscle. People forget. It's just crazy. I have a strong belief in the process of famine or let's say abundance and scarcity. The body responds differently to things, from fish oil to growth hormone. If it's abundant, you're getting the same amount every single day. It doesn't do all the good things you want. But when there's some intermittent scarcity of it, and then you have a bolus dose, that's when the magic happens. So we're learning this, and this isn't a perfect discussion when we're talking about fasting as well. So let's get back into the study. So each individual ended up doing one or the other leg of this study. They either ate first and then did their cardio and then fasted for 36 hours. So were there any of the individuals that had any kind of negative effects to this experiment?
Not more than, actually, that's kind of one of the things we measured. We took surveys every 2 hours to see if they were hungry, if they had stomach discomfort, if they were grumpy, or we had all sorts of different mood states, right? Beyond feeling more grumpy over time. And actually, one of the cool things that we found out about this study is that when you exercise, even though you're getting more ketones and you're getting into ketosis faster, by the end of the study, you're not, or even throughout the study, time point by time point, you're not any more grumpy. You're not any more hungry. Yes, you get progressively more hungry or a little bit more grumpy over the fast, but not anymore if you exercise versus if you don't. So you can add those benefits of additional ketones without the side effects of being additionally grumpy.
And did you have a specified protocol for breaking the fast? Since you were going to flip these people over into the other group at some point, were they required to do anything special about breaking the fast?
Go ahead, Dr. Bailey.
Oh no, they were not, and we had a 7-day washout, at least 7 days washout in between them. So we really didn't. It wasn't like we're doing them the next day we're doing their fast, or even the day after that we're doing their fast. There was a period of time between the fasts that they went back to normal living. There wasn't a significant difference in body weight between the 2 days of fasting. It was they entered it in similarly, and we didn't have any order effects or anything like that. So it seemed like it was okay.
Were these all fasting naive candidates? Had they been playing around with fasting? So yeah, let me be in the study. No,
there's not. Most of these, Utah has a lot of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and BYU is a sponsoring. It's sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and those members of the church are not required to, but are encouraged to fast once a month for 24 hours. So
that's very insightful. That's very insightful.
And so most of our participants probably have some experience with fasting. Whether they do not do it all the time though. We did screen them out. They weren't people who were doing it all the time, but they at least had some experience with once a month fasting.
Any sleep disturbances in the
good question.
So we screened for that as well. We made sure. As far as during the fast or previous
during the fast, a lot of people have problem. If someone is insulin resistant, the greatest problem they have, besides subjective tremor or anxiety while fasting, is that they can't sleep because they go to sleep for an hour or two and then they wake wide up because blood sugar drops in the middle of the night and they have to wake up in order to liberate glucose and glycogen. And so a lot of people have a hard time sleeping when fasting. Did you see that in this group?
Well, we measured it. We haven't analyzed it yet. So we actually have an objective measure of sleep that we haven't analyzed yet. I don't think we had anything reported to us. Landon, do you remember that?
No, I mean, subjectively, yeah, like Dr. Bailey said, we put accelerometers on everyone too, so we could see how much they tossed and turned or if they got up at night.
Awesome.
So we could objectively measure that sleep. We haven't done that analysis quite yet, but that's something we want to get to. But
I would love to see their sleep. I'd love to see their REM sleep. I'd love to see their deep sleep when fasted, because there's a lot of things that change in sleep when fasted. I mean, I've discovered I actually track my sleep 3 different ways, and when I was fasting all the time, I could see changes in my sleep based on how long I was fasting for. So it'd be interesting to see that as well.
Yeah.
Did you see it more like improvements as you fasted longer, or detriments as you fasted longer?
When you're fasting naive, and this is like your first go around at the rodeo, you'll find that your sleep kind of sucks on longer fasts. And some people will even say, I was dreaming of food all night long, or I woke up so hungry at 4:00 in the morning that I had to get up and have breakfast and break my fast. But the more you do it, and the more comfortable you become with fasting, the better glucose control and ketone production your body develops. Then you have no problem sleeping at night. I had the single best leg training day in my life on a 36-hour fast.
Really?
I mean, I went into the gym 36 hours deep into a fast. I squatted and I deadlifted, and I was like an animal. But it may not have been the best thing for my body, and that comes from evolution, right? Because like if I'm starving, my body's going to put the gas on It's going to turn my brain on and say, hey, you're not starving. Let's go get that mammoth. Come on, we can do this, and you'll die trying. But those are the evolutionary gifts that people ignore when fasting is powerful medicine. Rob Wolf said this to me because I was fasting and training, and I would break my fast with a single 4,000 calorie meal, which included a gallon of raw unpasteurized milk. And I mean, and I started doing that 1 meal a day thing probably 8 or 9 years ago before it became a thing today. And Rob Wolf warned me. He said, Carl, you're playing with really, really powerful medicine. You're going into the gym, you're moving heavy weight, you're fasted, then you're having this one big meal. I couldn't sustain it for very long, to be honest with you. He was right. He was right about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I want to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we have lots of questions lining up. We'll work our way through the questions, and we got lots more to discuss. So stay tuned. You are watching and listening to Superhuman Radio, and we will be right back. Every day, there's a new wellness trend. Eat that, do this, avoid those. How do you know where to start or who to trust? Inside Tracker helps you cut through the noise by analyzing your blood, your DNA, your lifestyle, and your fitness tracker to provide you with a science-backed, trackable action plan on how to live, age, and perform better. Personalized, one-size-fits-one recommendations to help you optimize you. For a limited time, Inside Tracker is offering Superhuman Radio listeners 25% off the entire store. Go to shrnetwork.biz/inside tracker, INSIDETRACKER, to save 25% off. Change begins on the inside. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today. Creatine. I want to introduce you to Tau Patch, a heavily researched patented wearable device that provides immediate and long-lasting health benefits. Tau Patch's nanocrystals convert your body heat into light of specific therapeutic frequencies that optimize your central nervous system. The health benefits of Tau Patch include relief from chronic pain, better sleep, increased focus, reduced stress, improved athletic performance, and more. Discover what it can do for you by visiting shrnetwork.biz/Tau Patch. That's TAOPATCH. Use code SHR for your superhuman discount today. Is there something interfering with your happiness or ability to achieve your goals? BetterHelp can help. They will assess your needs and match you with a licensed therapist. This is not a self-help or crisis line. It's professional counseling done securely online. They have a broad range of experts and are available worldwide without having to wait in an uncomfortable waiting room. Get the help you need and start living a happier life today. Go to shrnetwork.biz/betterhelp. That's better, HELP, and receive 10% off your first month of counseling when you use the code SHR. Every day, there's a new wellness trend. Eat that, do this, avoid those. How do you know where to start or who to trust? Inside Tracker helps you cut through the noise by analyzing your blood, your DNA, your lifestyle. Hemp Company's Delta 8 soft chews are the premier Delta 8 product on the market today. Knoll Creek's Delta 8 is produced from high-quality hemp-derived CBD oil, and soft chews are manufactured using proprietary nano-emulsification technique that ensures the Delta 8 soft chew will timely deliver the desired effects cleanly and consistently from piece to piece. In a space where at least 70% of the products fail to meet label claims and where most users of conventional hemp products are left disappointed, Knoll Creek's Delta 8 soft chews are a product you can trust. Visit shrnetwork.biz/Delta8. That's DELTA and the number 8 and use the code SHR20 to get 20% off your first order today.
This is the Superhuman Channel. Evolution just got kicked up a notch.
Welcome back. So let's see here. We got lots of good comments and questions. Let's start at the top. So Craig Hollander says, Fasting can be very stressful for the body or extremely healing, depending on how long it's done and the state of the body. Proper hydration is most important during a fast. Breaking a fast should be done carefully as well. Good comment. Taylor C says, is there a healthy range of ketones the average person should be striving for producing? My naturopath measures, but my functional doctor hasn't ever checked. You think that there's a beneficial or a meaningful level for general health? I mean, if you're trying to reverse tumors, especially astrocytomas and gliomas and stuff like glioblastomas and stuff like that, we know that you've got to really be high on the ketone levels. We also know that if you are dealing with seizures, you got to be, these are therapeutic diets. They're not the average diet, but there seems to be some benefits from just having ketones present, especially from a signaling standpoint. Do you think that there's a number we can put on it? Anybody?
I don't know if there is one. Landon, have you heard that? They talk about 0.5, but I don't think 0.5 is, that's more of a rule of thumb. I'm not even sure I don't even think that's even like, there's no, it's somewhat of a consensus, but not really a hard rule. I don't know. What do you think, Landon? Do you have any thoughts?
Oh, there's definitely a point where ketones become dangerous, right? They become acidic, makes your blood pH drop. And we see that in diabetic ketoacidosis, but there's certainly, I feel like there's a dose response relationship. We say we want our ketones at 0.5, but there's surely benefits below that as well. And maintaining them within a 0.5 to even a 3 range seems to be reasonable for most people who are getting there through their diet.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a real good like scientific. This is it.
Right.
There might be a practical, and we're not practicing like helping people fast every day. We do some research on it. It would be very interesting to know, and I don't think it would be interesting to find out what that would be. And it may be different for each of the different diseases that you're talking about.
It has to be. In fact, when people ask me about diet, I ask them first, well, what is your goal? Like if you have a glioblastoma and you want to stop, or you have a highly metastatic type cancer and you want to slow metastasis down, you got to be like above 5 millimoles, 6 millimoles of blood ketone levels. You got to be deep into ketosis and you got to stay there for days. Dr. Thomas Seyfried has been on my show numerous times. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he wrote Cancer as a Metabolic Disorder, and he's pioneered a lot of the work on cancer and ketosis. And I said, Tom, if you were diagnosed with cancer tomorrow, what would you do? He says, the first thing I do is fast for 3 days. He says, and then I would only eat fat. I'd stay away from protein. He said, because even glutamine and methionine can feed certain cancers. So now that's a lot different than a guy who's saying, I'd like to have some ketones in my body to balance out, the glucose that my body uses. Completely different. You know what I mean? So the devil is in the details. What are you trying to do with your ketogenic diet? Are you trying to stop epilepsy and seizures? Big difference than I'd like to benefit from the balance of having more ketones.
Yeah, or I'm borderline insulin resistant, or and I'm trying to build that back up, build up my insulin sensitivity. Yeah, there's certainly truth to that. Absolutely.
And Dominic D'Agostino came on the show, and we talked about the effects of exogenous ketones on insulin, and small amounts have an ability to drive insulin down. I mean, you don't have, if you have 1 millimole, you're affecting insulin. You're pushing it down.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We have a question from Fawn D. I guess this is
direct. I do think, just quickly, metabolic switching energy substrates is probably a good thing, and periodically doing that. And it takes, depending on what you ate before your fast, because if you eat a real high carbohydrate meal, it takes a long time to get to start building up ketones. And so depending on how long it takes, but it is about 12 hours to start really using, 12 to 13 hours to start using fat really well. And about a fast per se. So
it depends on the carbohydrate too. So there's a sugar that a lot of guys who are who are intermittent fasting or ketone diets will use. It's called cyclic dextrin.
Okay.
And it's a high molecular weight compound carbohydrate that really, like if you take it for a half hour before you go to the gym, take 40 grams, 35, 40 grams, and then you train for an hour and a half, it's gone. Like it gets used up real fast. It's kind of like the same thing used to be true of D-ribose, but D-ribose is so friggin' expensive that nobody could afford to take 30 grams before a workout. So I would argue that it depends on the carbohydrate that you're eating, you know. But yeah, if you're a runner and you're doing a big pasta meal, it's going to take a long time for you to recover from that to get back into ketosis.
Yep, you're right.
Yep.
So let's see here. Fondy's got a question for me. She's asking me, I'm assuming Fawn is a girl. I'm sorry if it's not. You know, I have no way of knowing. Fawn says, what went wrong when you were doing OMAD, 1 meal a day? Was it due to working out or exercise, which obviously you're not going to stop doing? Right. I'll never stop doing it. Also, how many carbs a day did you ingest? Do you ingest now? I'm eating about 250 grams of carbohydrates a day, but mostly oatmeal and green vegetables. I love oatmeal. I take Greek yogurt and raw oatmeal, the instantized oatmeal, and I mix it up and I eat it just like that. The beta glucan in it is really good for insulin, by the way, insulin sensitivity. Back then, I wasn't keeping track. I was drinking a gallon of raw milk after working out, after being completely fasted for at least a day or two. And then I would drink a gallon of raw milk, and then I would eat, chicken breast instead. I would use peptides. I'd use a little GHRP6 before my meal, which made me ravenously hungry. And I would eat 4,000 calories in one sitting. And I felt great. I didn't feel full. I felt like, well, I could do that again. Obviously, I didn't do it. But my problem, Fawn, was I take everything to extremes. You can ask Elisa about this. I do this with every area of my life, and it's why I've torn so many muscles and broken things on my body, because I'm always testing my limits. I'm always trying to learn something. I take large doses of supplements to see, like, okay, people will say, oh, well, you take this supplement that it does this for you. And I'm like, okay, what if I take 5 times? I should notice that like right away. And I'm just an extremist that way. What I did could have lasted if I would have did it maybe once a month instead of every week. I probably would have fared a lot better.
Hey Carl, how did you do that? How did you do your 1 day of fasting? Did you do the lifting right before the meal?
I always did cardio. I always did cardio in the morning, fasted, and then I just wouldn't eat. And then usually I had stopped eating at 6 p.m. the night before, and then I would go to the gym at like 4 o'clock. So I had at least a 24-hour, pretty close to a 24-hour fast before I trained, and then ate again.
Okay. So you did two workouts fasted. One at 12 hours you did cardio, and then one closer to 22 hours for lifting.
Yeah, and then I did quite a few of these 36-hour fasts where I went into the gym and trained, and I was always so strong. And I really don't know what to attribute it to. Maybe it's because I knew I was going to eat afterwards.
Motivation, dangling the carrot in front of the donkey. Yeah.
I don't know if either of you have heard of Dr. Milind Watfi, but he has a book. You got to get this book. It's expensive. It's actually a book for a university. He's a professor in India. He wrote a book of doves, diplomats, and diabetes. It's a game changer. He talks about the evolutionary perspective of hunger, the role of risk before eating. We're hardwired, when we evolved under conditions where we could be food too. It wasn't like, oh, well, let's just go to Big Boy and let's have breakfast this morning. You gotta really weigh it out. Like, oh, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to look for food and I may get killed. So hunger had to reach this crescendo where the peptides produced by hunger suppress the peptides produced to instill fear. And then you usually participated in high risk behavior. risky behavior that where you could die, or maybe you were, in an area where, you were climbing a mountain and you could fall and break your leg and become food. And those components are ingrained in us that change what the body does with what it eats. So I was toying with that back then. This idea of getting under the bar with 700 pounds completely fasted for 3 days. There was like I was afraid. I was like, oh man, like I could, break something. I could blow a disc. And I did that because of the interview I did with Dr. Watfi. The book is amazing, of Doves, Diplomats, and Diabetes. And he explains from a Darwinian position why we have insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes in the population today.
That's interesting. We'll look at that. Yeah.
So let me see. I think we have a couple more questions I'll get up there for you guys. A gallon of raw milk a day. I just stopped drinking milk. I drink milk all through the summer. Then as the weather gets cold, typically cows conserve their milk production. So I stop because I'm all about cyclical nature of everything in our lives. What would you hope that lay people and clinicians take away from this research here?
Well, I'd say what you're talking about is perfect, and it aligns perfectly with what we study. Like I said, we're a lifestyle medicine lab, and we feel like there's a lot of medicine that we can give ourselves just by the way we live, by our daily habits. It's not sexy to say fast regularly and exercise regularly, and really watch your diet your whole life. Do that your whole life, and you'll be okay. That's not sexy. People want a fast change. They want immediate results, and we live in a very impatient world. But I think that's our take-home message: is there's a lot of things in your lifestyle that can affect your health, and it's a lifetime commitment. It's habits every day that'll make the difference in the long run.
Dr. Bailey, what do you think? Same thing?
Yeah, I was, intermittent fasting is quite popular right now. We were thinking, is a 16-hour fast, a 12-hour fast? Is how you define intermittent fasting is very, very varied. 12 hours probably plus is used, and we wanted. I think the idea here is a 12-hour fast enough? Is a 16-hour fast enough to have a meaningful impact on your ketone levels? I suspect a 12-hour probably isn't sufficient. Maybe it's minimally sufficient. I think 16 you're starting to get there, but if you can do something to accelerate that, especially because for some people it's hard to fast, it's really challenging. So if you can accelerate the time frame, so you stop fasting earlier, or potentially just get a little bit more deeper into the fast at an earlier time, maybe there's some benefit for you there. If you don't mind exercising at the beginning of the fast.
And that's the magic, in my opinion. So that's how you level the playing field on a 12-hour to a 16-hour fast, in my humble opinion. Dr. Dale Bredesen, who has been on the show twice and wrote the best-selling book, An End to Alzheimer's, showed that you can reverse the symptoms of Alzheimer's, because he can't say reverse Alzheimer's because we're not doing, punch biopsies of the brain and going, oh, the plaque is gone, all that sort of stuff. So they won't let him say cure. But if the symptoms are gone, like you can split hairs over the word you want to use, he's curing Alzheimer's. His first study was with 20 people. His second one was 200. And now he's got hospitals all over the country employing his protocol. And it is a protocol. It's a lifestyle protocol. It includes supplementation. It includes hormone replacement therapy. It includes fixing your sleep. It includes time-restricted feeding. But he doesn't call it time-restricted feeding. What he talks about is sleep is impaired when you eat 3 hours before going to sleep. If you eat within 3 hours of going to sleep, your body is still digesting. The factory is still working. You can't sleep well. So he says, look, if you go to bed at 9, you have to finish your last meal at 6. Like, then by the time you get into bed, your body has pushed everything down and all the hard work is done. And now it's just, motility through the intestines and moving out. No problem. That's not going to affect sleep. And he's shown people who eat too close to sleep, they're called non-dippers. They don't get that dip in their heart rate that relaxes the heart. They tend to have a higher occurrence of heart attack in their sleep. And the much needed autophagy doesn't kick in properly when you've eaten within 3 hours of going to sleep. And so when I did that show with him, I thought, well, this is easy. I just stopped. My last meal, I'm done eating 5:45, 10 to 6, 6 o'clock. I'm all done. I go to bed at 9. My sleep is better when I do that. When I eat too close to bed, I don't sleep as well. And so if I get up in the morning and do cardio at 6, sit in the sauna, have my first meal at 7, now I've taken advantage of what you guys have learned and kind of compounded that short fast to make it produce more ketones, maybe more autophagy, more sirtuins, and all these other things by doing my cardio fasted, then getting in the sauna. And then I have a reasonable breakfast. I have eggs and oatmeal, or eggs and oatmeal mixed with yogurt, nothing insane, no pancakes and nothing like that. So I think the real magic, sadly, I hate everything in moderation, because that's not true. Cigarette smoking in moderation is not true. But in this case here, I think there has to be a balance of fasting and feeding, but it's got to be sensible. What do you think?
Yeah, Dr. Peterson up at UAB has shown that quite a bit. This they call it early timers for defeating, when they stop probably, and then I think they're suggesting around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, roughly, is probably ideal as a 8 to 4 time frame. I don't know if that's hard to do in a kind of a modern lifestyle, and I don't know if a 9 to 5 would be horrible. But they're suggesting that it's way better for you metabolically, and especially for pre-diabetic individuals. So I agree with you on that. You're talking about sleep. There is a little bit on sleep. I don't know the literature about it well, but I think we'll be looking into that soon. So
we're going to take our last commercial break and we'll wrap up the show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make.
White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High-quality, pasture-raised, great-tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose-to-tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/White Oak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 10% off your entire first order.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
If there is one mineral you should be worried about not getting enough of, it's magnesium. Magnesium is the body's master mineral, powering over 300 critical reactions, including detoxification, fat metabolism, energy, and even digestion is influenced by the presence of magnesium. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about a new magnesium product I've been taking now called Magnesium Breakthrough. It's the ultimate magnesium supplement, easily the best I've ever seen or experienced. With all 7 forms of magnesium, I was able to arrange an amazing deal for my audience, and I guarantee it's the best deal available on this product. Seriously, with volume discounts combined with our custom 10% coupon code SHR10, you can save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough. And I promise that this deal is only available on this specific website, magbreakthrough.com/SHR. You won't find that deal on Amazon or even on the company's own website. Go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use code SHR10 to save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough. Creatine Have you been struggling to achieve results in the gym? Trouble sleeping through the night? Overwhelmed with stress or anxiety? Look no further than Infinitewell supplements. They have designed products to address specific needs like muscle growth, hormone balance, sleep, and anxiety from the first use. Infinitewell helps you live well. Go to shrnetwork.biz/bewell. That's BEWELL and use code SHR20 and start living well today. Redcon One's new BAR bar is the ultimate soft-baked protein-packed snack bar, powered by peanut butter. Perfect for while on the go to help curb hunger or sneaky sweet tooth cravings. With 20 grams of protein, use as a meal replacement bar or when you're in need of a high-protein snack. Eat a Redcon One bar as a midday snack or for fuel before an intense training session. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Redcon1 and use the code SHR25 and save 25% off these delicious bars today. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/mypillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800-889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brain.
Welcome back. Real quick, was fat oxidation apparent in the individuals when they were fasting?
But the fact that they were using beta hydroxybutyrate, that it obviously had moved more towards fat oxidation. We did not measure it metabolically. We measured, only the other time we measured metabolism was during the exercise session itself.
Okay.
We did measure, so there is some indication so we measured insulin and glucagon. The ratio drops. So within the first 12 hours, we said insulin dropped, but also our insulin glucagon ratio. That ratio, when it drops, indicates that there's fat oxidation taking place.
Okay.
To some extent.
So that's a good thing.
So,
that's a good thing. So I think this is fascinating. I think there's a lot of people out there who have been arguing about doing fasted cardio in the morning. And I definitely think that this shows that there's a great deal of value to doing fasted cardio. And clearly, if you do cardio after a meal and you know that you burned off the caloric quantity of that meal, obviously you can get into ketosis pretty quickly. But I think that a lot could be said for fasted cardio. It just makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, right? We didn't have refrigerators. Maybe we had some berries and some nuts that we could nosh on, but the morning started with pursuit of food. And maybe that's why we respond the way we do in the morning to a little exercise.
yeah, and we know some hormones like cortisol are elevated in the mornings. You know, we're ready to, when we wake up, we're ready to hit the ground running.
Yeah. This is fascinating stuff. I like it. I hope that you guys will come back on the show when you have new research to put forth.
It would be an honor.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks so much for being here. Take care.
See you later.
you.
Bye.
And that's it for today's show. We will see everybody tomorrow with more Supreme Radio. This Friday, we have a show. Usually Friday I'm off, but this Friday we have a show. So please share the show also. A lot of good information that is extraneous to the primary discussion today that a lot of people can get from. You never know who you're going to help. Share the show, and we'll see you tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Take care.